you and me. We are not as divided as we were being told we are. No. How about we get inspired? Give ourselves just cause to revere our future again. Maybe set an example for our children. Give us reason to tell them, hey, listen and watch these men and women. These are great American leaders right here. Hope you grow up to be like them. And let's admit it. We can't truly be leaders if we're only living for re-election. Let's be knowledgeable and wise and act on what we truly believe. Again, we got to look in the mirror, lead with humility, and acknowledge the values that are inherent to, but also above politics. We got to make choices, make stands, embrace new ideas, and preserve the traditions that can create true progress for the next generation. With real leadership, let's start giving us, all of us, with real leadership, let's start giving all of us good reason to believe that the American dream is not an illusion.
It was amazing. It was powerful. The words were carefully selected so that they didn't offend, but they actually embraced. And it was smart, and it was a good way to deliver the good news that we are a country that can solve our own problems. However, this idea that 10 Republicans are going to see Matthew McConaughey in the Brady briefing room, named after a man who was shot in the freaking head while somebody tried to assassinate President Ronald Reagan, it's fanciful. It's not going to happen. It's not possible in our current system of government and self-governing, which is a joke. But there is a way. There is a way. You know that we have 50 Republicans because Joe Manchin said that he doesn't understand why a 18-year-old can buy a semi-automatic weapon, a long gun, and 1,000 rounds of ammunition, and nothing, is flagged. Nothing happens. It's all okay. He's down with the idea that that is not good. Yay. So basically what we have is a sane party, and a party that is lily-livered and scared of the crazy lunatic fringe that votes in primaries. And today is primary day in California, in Iowa, in Mississippi, in South Dakota. It's primary day in New Jersey, New Mexico, right? And these people are terrified of this day, primary day, where somebody of the same Republican Party can out-Republican them, and they will lose their power. They will lose their seat. They're so scared of that they refuse to lead. So let's leave it to the people who are pro-life, meaning when you're out of the womb and God has breathed into your nostrils and you are now a living, breathing human being, there is a party that actually wants to preserve and protect your life. And that is not them. So how in the world can we do this with only 50 votes? Well, like I said, we have a revenue measure called reconciliation. Reconciliation because money trumps peace in this country. And so you only need 50 votes to actually do revenue bills. So what if we said, you know what we should do? Since ARs and semi-automatic weapons can cost anywhere from $500 to $2,000 and up dollars, why don't we put a 1,000% excise tax on the sale of every one of those? Has nothing to do with the Second Amendment at all. Nobody's telling you that the Second Amendment should be interpreted to mean a well-regulated militia being necessary. Nobody's asking you to go back to the way that the United States of America governed itself under the Second Amendment forever until Antonin Scalia came along and said, I'm going to invent out of whole cloth the fact that a person can have a weapon under the Second Amendment that there is an inherent right to keep and bear arms, where it's not in the Constitution that way at all. And America accepted that forever until Antonin Scalia, I believe in 2008, manufactured one. But even in the Heller decision, which is what you want to look up, even in that decision that Antonin authored, that Antonin wrote, he said that does not give anybody a right to own any weapon, that they want. You can still make laws. You can still prohibit certain weapons. You can still prohibit, a lot of, private ownership. You can do that. What he said in Heller was, and this isn't in the Constitution either, but what he said in Heller was that there was a man in D.C., there was a man who lived in Washington, D.C., and he wanted a license to own a gun for home protection. And the whole Heller decision, all those many pages of it said, okay, this man in D.C. can have a permit to own a gun at home for home protection. That's what Heller was. You could have a permit to own a gun for home protection. Obviously, he wasn't saying you don't need a permit. Okay, so that's what Heller was. The crazy lunatics on the right and the Republican Party has invented what is in the Heller decision and told people there's a right to own an Uzi. There's a right to own an AR. That is not anywhere in the Heller decision, nor is it in the Constitution. But what we can do is stop arguing over that, because there are some people in this country who will never get it. They will never hear it. They will never read it. They will never know it. They just won't. So what if we just said, okay, we only have 51 votes with Kamala. Let's do a tax bill. Let's do a revenue bill. And that way we can do it under reconciliation. And let's put a 1,000% tax on semi-automatic weapons. So, for instance, a $500 AR-style weapon would now have a $5,000 tax on it. See what I mean? A $2,000 AR-15 would now have a $20,000 tax on it when you purchased it. It solves some problems, but then only really crazy rich people would be able to shoot you, which is kind of not good. But it's a start. If we can't get to an election and figure out that we need 10 more Democrats in the Senate in order to make things civilized again in this country. But we could use the definition of assault weapons that is in the Assault Weapons Ban, in the Assault Weapons Ban Act, which has been updated by David Cicilline. He's got a bill that lists and describes what an assault weapon is in his assault weapons ban. Now, I know, we're not talking about a ban, which we should, but we're not. We're talking about a tax on assault weapons, and I'm just using David Cicilline's bill as a description of which weapons would fall under that 1,000% tax. It would make an exception for government purchases and military purposes. But there is no reason, none at all, why any citizen of these United States of America needs a weapon of war in peacetime. There just isn't. There is no way to explain it. Don't tell me the good guy, bad guy thing, because first of all, bad guys who have guns are criminals. Good guys who have guns turn out to be cowards. So why not go back to only bad guys can have guns because they're criminals and you get to arrest them for criminal activity, criminal behavior? I mean, these cheap slogans, these stupid bumper sticker explanations for mass freaking carnage in schools, in churches, in supermarkets, at country music concerts in Las Vegas, at mosques, on the streets. I'm sorry, but there is just no reason for this kind of firepower to be awash in our society when we have so many people willing to do horrible things. The police are outgunned. That's why they won't go in. Even though they had the same weapons as this one shooter, they still know what can be done with a weapon like that. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to randyrhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.